Family Law, coming this fall to CBS Monday.
In 1997, Evan Ramsey walked into his school in Bethel, Alaska, pulled out a 12-gauge shotgun, and murdered 2 people. As in Littleton, Colorado, people struggle to understand how it happened. We went to Bethel to talk to Evan Ramsey to find out what drives a teenager to kill and what's still in his mind.
I'm dead to the world. In a few months, nobody will really remember me. And I'll be considered yesterday's news.
To tell me that the Mustang had more problems or severity of problems than any other car in its class, or maimed or killed more people, to me is poppycock.
But it's not just poppycock to some of Ford's own safety engineers, who concluded early on there was a problem with the Mustang's fuel tank design.
It would clear the air to say, look, we goofed.
Ford knew this accident was going to happen. They knew it 30 years ago, and they know it's going to happen again.
You are or are not flatly accusing Ford of suppressing the information?
I am flatly accusing them of that.
You show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. That was a very famous statement, one I carry with me all the time. I've never been a good loser, and I don't suppose I ever will be.
By 1990, it looked like things couldn't get worse for George Steinbrenner. Not only was his team last in the league, but also the boss was suspended from baseball, benched for 2 years. And there was a standing ovation in Yankee Stadium.
You knew that they had cheered in this stadium.
Yes, they did.
Cheered?
Yeah. That was embarrassing. It really hurt. Really hurt.
I'm Dan Rather.
I'm Bob Simon.
I'm Charlie Rose.
I'm Vicki Mabrey.
I'm Scott Pelley. Those stories tonight on 60 Minutes 2.
60 Minutes 2 is sponsored by The Hartford. Whatever life brings you, bring it on.
Possibility 1, he brings the car home without a scratch. The Hartford continues your safe driver rate. Possibility 2, he brings the car home without a word. The Hartford covers the damage the dent fairy must have done. Possibility 3, he brings the car home in pieces. We can still cover him, assuming he's not grounded for life. Whatever life brings you, bring it on.
We interrupt this program for this important announcement. MCI now offers 5 cents a minute every day. That's just 5 cents every evening and all weekend long. Presenting the billboard of the millennium. Let it rip.
MCI, 5 cents every day.
That's one powerful message. Call 1-800-EVERY-DAY to join.
There are those among us with very simple tastes. They only want the best. And for them, there's Fancy Feast gourmet cat food. Exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
Okay, pop quiz. At Office Max, you save money on A, electronics, B, furniture, C, everything for back to school. Pencils down, it's D, all of the above. Trick question. Office Max, we go to the max for you.
Allergies knocking you flat? Try non-drowsy Allegra. Only Allegra has fexofenadine. For people 12 and over, ask your doctor or pharmacist for more information. Side effects are low and may include drowsiness, cold or flu, nausea, or menstrual pain. Allegra, so you can enjoy the world around you.
46 Emmy nominations. America's #1 network, CBS.
Students and teachers returned to school this week at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, attempting to begin a normal school year. That will not be easy after what happened there last spring, and we may never understand what drove Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris to kill. But there are others who can at least shed some light on this dark event. Earlier this year, Our correspondent Carol Marine spoke with one boy whose story has powerful parallels to what happened in Littleton.
In 1997, when he was 16, Evan Ramsey walked into his school in Bethel, Alaska, pulled out a 12-gauge shotgun, and murdered 2 people. Then, as now, people struggle to understand how it could happen. We found some answers and found that there is more connecting Bethel and Littleton than just teenagers with guns and a grudge. We went to Bethel to reconstruct what happened to Evan Ramsey and to hear him tell us, in his own words, about the rage that drives a teenager, any teenager, to kill. There is only one way in and one way out of Bethel. An isolated town of 5,000 on the Alaska tundra, its name means hallowed spot. Today, that spot is marked by one unholy act, a crime no one was prepared for.
I was in the teacher's lounge and heard a popping sound. It sounded like a firecracker or a balloon popping.
Renee Athanas taught art at Bethel High School.
So I walked down the hall, and kids were streaming past down the hallway, screaming, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun."
The boy with the gun, 16-year-old Evan Ramsey, had shot his first victim. A popular student and athlete, 15-year-old Josh Palacios, had been mortally wounded. Ryan Curta was sitting next to Josh.
Josh grabbed his stomach and fell to the ground. I'm hit. And then I got up, I turned, and I ran back into the classrooms.
Renee Athanas went to the spot where Josh lay dying. When she looked up, Evan was pointing his 12-gauge shotgun directly at her.
I said, "Evan, put the gun down. Put the gun down. You don't have to do this."
Had you ever seen him look like this?
Angry like that, that uncontrolled anger, I had never seen that. He was not in control at all.
Evan left and minutes later returned and killed the principal, Ron Edwards. Then it seemed he had one more victim to claim.
He started putting the gun under his chin.
Evan put the gun under his own chin.
He put his gun under his own chin, and he started saying, "They're not going to take me alive. They're not going to get me."
Evan Ramsey never fired the final shot. After a short standoff with police, he surrendered and was convicted of murder and assault. Why he did what he did was what many people in Bethel could not understand. We asked Evan Ramsey that question when we met him at a prison in Anchorage.
My main objective of going into the high school was to check out.
To check out?
Yeah, to commit suicide.
Is it possible, Evan, you didn't really want to kill yourself?
It might be. I mean, but I don't know. I really wanted to die.
The story of Evan's life is a tortured tale. When Evan was 7, his father went to prison. His mother became an alcoholic, and Evan and his 2 brothers were shipped off to a series of foster homes. In one of those homes, according to court testimony, he suffered sexual abuse and humiliation. Psychiatrist Dr. John Smith examined Evan a few months after the murders and found at the age of 10, Evan had attempted suicide.
He went to a cliff, as he described it to me, and got in the water and was planning to wade out to sea and drowned himself.
So from a very early stage, you have a child with chronic, untreated depression and despair.
Yes.
By the time he was in high school, he was using marijuana, getting poor grades, and struggling to control an explosive temper. And he spent hours every day playing the violent video game Doom. The same video game that was also said to be a source of fascination for Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the 2 suspects in the Colorado shooting, as well as 14-year-old Michael Carneal, who opened fire in Paducah, Kentucky. And there is another similarity. Evan was an outsider, someone who didn't fit in with the athletes and the most popular kids at the school. At Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold reportedly felt rejected by other students. What Ivan told us is that no one, not teachers, friends, or other students, understood the rejection he felt.
I never knew my family except from my little brother. And there's people picking on me.
How would they pick on you?
I'd be called a piece of shit, or a bastard. I've been called a spaz and a retard.
There are kids who are lonely. There are kids who are depressed. There are kids who feel picked on. And somehow they get through it.
Some things people take differently.
Could you have kept yourself from doing it?
I don't know.
On the day he was sentenced for the 2 murders, Ivan showed little emotion in the courtroom until he was given a chance to speak. Ivan, when you cry, do you cry for the people who died? Do you cry for yourself?
Somewhat, but I just wish that I hadn't done that.
Ivan is sorry that he has to face the consequences of all these things.
Renee Erb prosecuted Ivan Ramsey and said whatever his current remorse, he planned and practiced the shooting. And Principal Ron Edwards was someone he wanted to kill.
There are some people in this world that are no good. Nobody really knows where they come from or why, but they've always been with us, and it may be that they always are.
Is Ivan Ramsey no good?
I think that Ivan falls into that category.
Does that seem harsh?
That doesn't mean that I don't feel sorry for him. I do.
But you see something essential to him that makes him no good.
He's dangerous.
But this is not just a story of one boy with a gun. Ivan Ramsey did not plan his violence alone. He had help and encouragement from 2 14-year-old boys, one of whom helped him learn to load and fire a 12-gauge shotgun, and told him that fame and fortune would follow. The day of the shooting, a group of students gathered in the second-floor library overlooking the lobby because they were told by Ivan and his accomplices that something big was going to happen. By the time Ivan arrived, Dr. Smith said there was no way for him to back out.
He'd been up all night. His thinking had become narrow in terms of his mission to do something big.
And because other kids knew, and then he would have been humiliated in the face of them if he backed down.
That trapped him.
But prosecutor Renee Erb maintained that Ivan wasn't trapped. He was driven by his own ego.
The event here, in this case, is all about the fact that it's public. It's all about Ivan. It's not about the people that he killed.
They're just sort of incidental.
They're cannon fodder.
So he filled a gallery,
yes.
in short.
Yeah.
And in that gallery, by Renee Athanas' estimate, were 10 to 15 kids.
Some of the kids I don't think knew that there was going to be a gun involved.
But some of them did.
I think some of them did.
What was going on? The kids wouldn't come to you or the principal or someone and say, there's trouble here.
I don't think they believed that it was really good. I don't know what really, but I don't think they really believed it. It's like they were going to watch TV or something. It wasn't going to be real. You know, that they didn't really think somebody would die. Why somebody wouldn't tell has bothered all of us.
There is one more theory for why Ivan did what he did, a theory that goes beyond depression and isolation, something that separates the case of Ivan Ramsey from that of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Ivan calls it a family curse, and it's something we asked his father about. Ivan said that he believes that this family lives under a kind of generational curse.
Yeah, I think that sometime too.
Don Ramsey became known as the Rambo of Alaska. In 1986, enraged when the Anchorage Times refused to publish a political letter he had written, Don Ramsey showed up at the newspaper's office. And when you walked into the Anchorage Times, what were you going to do?
Get my article printed.
And how were you going to accomplish that?
At the time, I didn't know, but I was armed and ready to go to war. I had a AR-180 223 semi-auto, something like 180 rounds of ammo for it. Snub barrel 44 Magnum and about 30 rounds for it.
Don Ramsey said he was ready to die, just like Ivan was. And just like Ivan, after a short standoff with police, he surrendered and went to prison. As people look for the responsibility or someone to blame, some people say, you're to blame. You kicked off that first domino.
Yeah, I did.
You accept that.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
But what don't you accept? What's the rest of it?
Well, we take like where the children were in foster homes and stuff like that. The wife started drinking and neglecting the kids. What they did is they took them out of an abusive environment and put them into an abusive environment.
Don Ramsey was released from prison in February of 1997. 2 weeks later came the shooting at Bethel High.
The tragedy of everyone in Bethel, particularly the young man and the principal who were killed and their families, is that Ivan was not recognized as needing as much help as he did.
The frightening thing that some people told us in Bethel was that there were other kids who looked like they were far more problematic than Ivan Ramsey. How do we know with any certainty who is the kid who is on the verge of something disastrous?
You don't. It's scary to face that, but you don't.
2 years later, many lives are still affected by what happened in Bethel. At Ivan's sentencing, the judge called Renee Athanas a hero who 3 times tried to stop Ivan. But for her, that was little comfort.
I'm mad at Ivan for putting me through this. I'm mad at all those other boys and girls who didn't come forward and say anything. I'm mad at parents for not taking care of their children, so they ended up doing this. I'm mad at teachers and society for not being aware of the problems and dealing with it young. Kindergarten, first grade, that's when you need to do it. This tragedy didn't have to occur. Those other ones didn't have to occur.
Ivan's 2 14-year-old accomplices were tried and sentenced as juveniles. They will be free when they're 19. Ivan Ramsey was sentenced to 200 years in prison and will be eligible for parole when he is 75. In the end, there was no lasting fame for Ivan Ramsey, but it was something that was still on his mind.
I'm dead to the world. In a few months, nobody will really remember me. There'll be other people that will commit other offenses, and I'll be considered yesterday's news.
This week, only at Radio Shack, Compact Creative Learning Series PCs have savings of up to $550 with mail-in rebates. This week, only at Radio Shack, these educational PCs with Intel Pentium 3 processors have special financing. And this week, only at Radio Shack, you can take one home and try out 38 software titles, then choose 12. Help your kids do better in school, so they'll do better in life. Only at Radio Shack.
Need new struts? Come to Midas. Get a genuine Midas Gold strut with R2 technology for only $59.95 with a lifetime guarantee. Go safely. Go Midas.
My business runs on long hours and a leave. I can't settle for those pain relievers that quit too soon. Just 2 Aleve are strong enough to work all day. I used to need 8 Tylenol to do that. There's a tool for every job. For tough pain, it's Aleve.
Nobody does it like you.
Boy, they love to play horsey. So your carpet better be deep down clean. And for that, you need Hoover. Hey, you want the best, partner? Introducing the Hoover Steam Vac Wide Path. It sends hot water surging through 6 rotating brushes to stir up and pull out deep down dirt the way no other carpet cleaner can. Hoover! If you want clean, deep down you want Hoover.
We got a dog for the kids. Okay, so I became attached.
Dad!
So my wife called it obsessive. I just wanted the perfect food for my dog. Talked to the vet, talked to the breeder, read books. Okay, 2 words. Go shopping. That's how I found Purina One brand lamb and rice formula. First ingredient, lamb. I think we found our dog food. Me, obsessive? I don't think so. Purina One, second to none.
Take the ladies' man quiz. Gentlemen, your pregnant wife says...
I'm just wandering around here like a big cow, aren't I, Jimmy?
You say nonsense, you look better than ever, or...
Yeah, Claire looks good, though, don't you think? You lose some weight there, Claire?
No, I'm sorry. Let's try again. She says...
You've got the only testosterone in the house.
You say thank you, I'm proud to have it, or...
That's not true. Your mother's coming along with a very nice mustache.
Oh, too bad. But remember, there are no losers on Ladies' Man coming this fall to CBS Monday.
It's been called America's car, the classic Ford Mustang with its instantly recognizable shape. The Classic is the first Mustang model made from the years 1964 through 1970, and as many as 1.5 million of these distinctive Mustangs are still cruising the highways. But as we first reported last spring, this proud American icon, now 35 years on the road, has a past that is not so well known and not so proud. A problem with the gas tank that may be responsible for injuries and deaths. Last summer, Harold Gilo was 16 and in love with a 32-year-old. A 32-year-old car, a classic Ford Mustang.
Ooh, look at this beautiful car.
Shut up, Harold.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, awesome car.
On July 15th, soon after this tape was made, Harold was driving the beloved 1966 Mustang in the rain. The car hydroplaned, spun across the center line, where an oncoming vehicle hit the Mustang in the rear.
The car was fully engulfed in flames. I mean, the flames are coming out the front window, the side windows.
Craig Jackson swerved around the skidding Mustang. A professional firefighter who has seen many car fires, Jackson was startled by the size of the exploding fireball in the Mustang.
I was going, why is this accident all of a sudden turning into a catastrophe like this? I still don't know what really happened.
Harold, at the wheel, was incinerated. The police say Harold was going faster than conditions would allow. Ford Motor Company says Harold panicked and was killed on impact. Harold's parents dispute that and point to a coroner's report saying not that their son was killed on impact, but that he burned to death in the Mustang fire.
I'm sure that Harold knew that we loved him, and I think we're fortunate in that, without a shadow of a doubt, we know he's in
the arms of Jesus. We know that.
But this is going to happen again unless people know about it.
What Liz and Harold Gilo Sr. learned was a secret about the classic Mustangs. The cars built from 1964 through 1970. For more than 30 years, fires erupting after crashes in the trunks of some classic Mustangs have spread into the passenger compartment. This American icon has left a trail of suffering and death.
All across America, these old Mustangs are treasured so by so many people, they just won't let them go. In addition to the amazing number of Mustangs still on the road, there are many thousands off the road just waiting to be restored. From fields, from garages, from junkyards, classic Mustangs are being reclaimed, reconditioned, and returned to the nation's highways.
And every one of them carries in the trunk a potentially deadly defect, says San Francisco attorney David Rand.
This right here is the gas tank. I'm going to climb in here.
He's representing the parents of Harold Gilo, and he's sued Ford before on the gas tank design. Because the top of the Mustang's tank is the floor of the trunk, Rand says terrible fires can erupt and spread inside the car.
And as you can see, the gas tank is right here, inches away from me. And the gas has a very wide opening to come right from the tank directly into where the people are.
Ford has been sued more than 70 times by people burned in rear-end collisions of classic Mustangs. Most suits have been settled out of court without publicity.
I guess they felt that it'd be better to pay people off, give them money, than to recall the car.
We met many victims of classic Mustang fires. Marlo Aragon's accident happened in 1985. She was 15, a princess at her high school prom. In an instant, the fire in a 1967 Mustang burned away her fingers, much of her skin, her ears, and her hair.
Luckily, did I tell you how I got out?
The fire in Lisa Hutchinson's 1966 Mustang burned her vocal cords.
It was just like a garden hose and was spraying gasoline in there. And the
Peggy Beale's 1965 Mustang exploded in fire in 1972, leaving her with deep scars.
No, it's a classy-looking car, but it's a death trap.
In 1995, Ben Hodges survived a rear-end crash in a 67 Mustang. He would have walked away without a scratch, except for the burning gas that came into the passenger compartment and nearly killed him.
Before I was born, they knew about this car. Before I was born, there was people getting burned in this car.
Ford has refused repeated requests to appear on 60 Minutes 2 to discuss the history of fires in the 1964 through 1970 Mustangs. Ford says these were all high-speed crashes, and in a letter, Ford insists the fact that there are so many registered Mustangs, up to 1.5 million classics still on the road, is unassailable evidence of the design integrity and performance of this car line. In fact, there are no reliable statistics on fires erupting in these classic Mustangs. We requested our own expert analysis of U.S. government data on highway fatalities. The result, the death rate where fire occurred in rear-end Mustang crashes is more than 3 times higher than for all other cars of the same period. While Ford chose not to speak with us on camera about the classic Mustang, Lee Iacocca did. Former president of Ford Motor Company, Iacocca was known as the father of the Mustang when it debuted in 1964.
So people then said, wow, that's such a great buy. I'll go in now, I'll buy air conditioning, I'll buy a V8. Before you knew it, we were making nothing but money. I mean, we were rolling in. We were lucky. Timing.
Was safety a big factor in those days?
In those days, it was part of the specifications you laid out to the best of your ability, but it wasn't front and center. It wasn't the priority.
When the Mustang was designed, when you brought it to marketplace, you don't remember discussions about the fuel tank, per se?
Not one, in honesty, not one.
Don't remember anybody saying, look, this fuel tank may give us problems?
This is news to me. We built cars in that era to the best of our ability, what was available to make as good and safe a car as we could.
Iacocca says he is stunned by the suggestion that rear-end fires in classic Mustangs indicate the car is seriously flawed.
The reason I'm stunned is if you don't have that many successes in your life, to tell me that the Mustang had more problems or severity of problems than any other car in its class, or maimed or killed more people, to me is poppycock.
But it's not just poppycock to some of Ford's own safety engineers, who concluded early on there was a problem with the Mustang's fuel tank design.
It would clear the air to say, look, we goofed.
One of those engineers is Peter Bertelsen. He has never before spoken publicly about his years at Ford when the Mustang was marketed as a sports car Americans could afford.
It was supposed to be a low-price car, that was, and in order to make it lighter and less expensive, they did come up with this drop-in fuel tank.
The drop-in fuel tank. Ford was the only American manufacturer to use one before abandoning the design in 1971. On Mustangs built from 1964 through 1970, the gas tank was simply dropped into a hole in the trunk. If the tank is ruptured in a rear-end collision, there is no solid barrier, just a flimsy seat back between the passengers and the gasoline.
It's not a safe way to put fuel into an automobile.
To this day, Ford calls the system reliable and safe. But Bertelsen remembers there was early and widespread recognition at Ford of the dangers of the Mustang's fuel system.
I can say absolutely that all of the engineering executives were aware of the problems of the drop-in tank.
In 1966?
In 1966.
Plans were made to change future models, but the danger in the classic Mustang was never publicized.
Mustang from Ford.
Mustang sales soared, especially among baby boomers. Even the boomer in the White House owns a classic Mustang. Style sold cars, not safety, says Lee Iacocca, who insists he tried.
You said I'm the father of Mustang. I happen to think I'm the father of safety. I really went for it and took a beating at the time.
Iacocca did take a beating when he tried to sell cars that wouldn't start till the seat belts were fastened. Congress passed a law against that. But Iacocca also pushed all the way to the White House for a delay in federal safety standards. And in a meeting with President Nixon, he was recorded on the president's secret taping system saying safety was killing the American car business.
I didn't know I was being taped at the time. How the hell would I know that?
He said shoulder harnesses and headrests are complete wastes of money. I'm reading out of the transcripts. Safety has really killed off our business.
We wanted to make sure we survived, so we talked differently then.
In building his case against Ford, attorney David Rand discovered film of a decades-old Mustang crash test.
They call it Crash Test 301. And they put a camera on top
Ford Crash Test 301, which he says shows unambiguously the danger of the drop-in gas tank.
Wait, and here comes all the gasoline.
Ford says this 1966 test was very severe on a modified car designed to study occupant movement, not to evaluate the gas tank. But the camera looking from above down into the trunk shows the tank being crushed and gasoline spewing onto passengers.
And very clearly, this dummy's head is just being saturated with gasoline. All of this gasoline, if it had been ignited, would have definitely killed all of the people in the car.
Another element in the case against Ford. 30 years before Harold Gilo's fatal accident, a young Ford engineer named Sherman Henson wrote in 1968, warning his superiors, quote, a fuel tank rupture during a rear-end collision would result in gasoline inside the vehicle.
Ford knew this accident was going to happen. They knew it 30 years ago, and they know it's going to happen again.
You are or are not flatly accusing Ford of suppressing the information?
I am flatly accusing them of that.
That has yet to be decided in court. Ford violated no laws or federal safety standards on the classic Mustang, but there was no safety standard on rear-end crashes back then, recalls Joan Claybrook, formerly the nation's top highway safety official.
So there was no government standard that covered it. It met all government standards, but there wasn't one that dealt with that problem.
In 1976, a year before Claybrook took over, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration reported classic Mustang fuel tanks, quote, present no fire hazard which does not also exist in other fuel tank systems, unquote. But Claybrook, now a consumer advocate, believes Ford passed by withholding from investigators its own Crash Test 301.
Ford knew and never told the Department of Transportation during the course of this investigation that when the car was hit in the rear and the fuel tank came forward, fuel could spew out into the passenger compartment.
You say Ford knew, but didn't tell the Department of Transportation.
That's correct. They had a crash test that they conducted, and it was withheld from the Department of Transportation.
Department records show Ford's Test 301 was not submitted, but Ford officials maintain they were fully responsive and that 301 was not designed to test fuel tank integrity and not relevant to the safety of the drop-in tank.
Why would they not fix it?
They hated recalling cars, particularly then. And Lee Iacocca, who was president of Ford, loved that car. He helped to design it. And so they didn't ever want to admit that they had a problem with their best car on the road.
Lee Iacocca insists he was never told of problems with the drop-in tank and says, don't blame the automakers because old cars do not have the same safety equipment as new ones.
To me, it's almost asinine to say, anything that grows old, you got to turn back the clock and make good on that. But technology, what the hell would you do with a black and white TV set today? You'd throw it away.
But there are repairs that could be made, say Harold Gilo's parents, and Ford could inform people of dangers learned about the classic Mustang.
They did know there was a problem with the car. They knew that based on their own test, based on their own safety engineers, and they did nothing about it. They didn't warn people.
Liz Gilo wants Ford to warn people now.
Maybe some other little boy or girl will grow up, go to college, get married, have children. Harold never will do that. He'll never do that.
The family has not yet sued Ford, but is on a safety campaign to get people out of classic Mustangs. They may find an unlikely ally in Lee Iacocca. At 74, Iacocca is out of the car business and into the business of selling electric bicycles. His advice today to owners of classic Mustangs who are concerned about safety?
And if you really want a real safe one, trade up. After 35 years, it's time to dump that old Mustang.
Possibility 1, he flattens your car. Your Hartford auto policy covers the damage. Possibility 2, he flattens your hot dog stand. Your Hartford small business insurance helps you rebuild. Possibility 3, he flattens your great Aunt Edna. Might we suggest investing your inheritance in one of our top-selling annuities? Whatever life brings you, bring it on.
Now you can save money anytime you make a phone call. Save on weekends, weekdays, holidays, mornings, evenings. Save on every single call. And you don't have to dial 1010 anything. You just have to call Office Depot.
Yeah, and I need a 3-hole paper punch. Yeah.
Call 1-888-GO-DEPOT for a free catalog. Office Depot. Low prices every day.
Want to color your gray beard or mustache and get a natural look? It's easy with Just for Men Gel.
You look so natural, no one can tell. With Just for Men Gel, no one can tell. With Just for Men Gel.
It's not regular hair coloring. It's specially made to penetrate that coarse, hard-to-color gray. Simply brush in and in 5 minutes, rinse. Now gray is gone, matched up to the rest of your hair.
You look so natural, no one can tell. With Just for Men Gel.
60 Minutes 2, a CBS News magazine, will continue.
The most original show of the season, now and again. CBS Friday this fall.
Parents are accused of an unthinkable crime.
I did not kill my daughter, Your Honor.
Why are you doing this, Doc?
Now they're on a mission to prove their innocence.
Isn't it time for us to fight back?
The cops seriously botched this case. They're guilty. We're going to convict them.
But which way will the jury go?
Do you wish to say anything? I loved her, and I'm gonna love her always.
Don't be sad, Mommy. Everything's going to be okay.
Watch the powerful true story.
It's too late.
It's never too late, Cindy.
Gone in the Night. CBS Wednesday.
Years before America's electric cooperatives forged the nationwide alliance, Touchstone Energy, neighbors built their own electric utility to power lives and communities. Now Touchstone Energy cooperatives serve millions of homes and businesses. Customers large and small get state-of-the-art technology and affordable service. From the one-room schoolhouse to the communities and businesses of tomorrow, trust Touchstone Energy, the power of human connections. We're Indiana's electric cooperatives, your Touchstone Energy partners.
Put it on, baby, put it all on.
Introducing Arby's new bacon, beef, and cheddar.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not ordinary bacon, but thick cut pepper bacon.
Lay it on me.
And not bland cheese, but hot, tangy cheddar.
I do like it hot.
Why settle for food you like?
Barry never settles.
When you can have food you love. Arby's new bacon, beef, and cheddar.
Come and get it, baby.
Another Indiana church fire under investigation. We'll have the latest at 11 o'clock.
The New York Yankees are possibly the greatest team in baseball today. Some say one of the greatest teams ever. And a lion's share of the credit goes to owner George Steinbrenner, the man known simply as the boss. But as we first reported last spring, the Yankees were once the worst team in the major leagues, and the boss deserved credit for that too. He was notorious for browbeating his players and managers, and it's fair to say he earned his reputation as the most hated man in baseball. Now, fans line up to get Steinbrenner's autograph. The former shipbuilder has become a baseball star in his own right. And he's not one to shy away from the limelight, especially now that it's shining in his direction after more than 25 years as the boss.
No team in the 25 years from 73
until last year, through last year, has won more baseball games than the Yankees. And that's what it's about. No team in baseball has won more games than we have.
Last fall, after winning a record 125 games in one season, the Yankees won the World Series.
Brocious, fittingly with a throw, the Yankees have done it again. They are the world champions of baseball in 1998.
Steinbrenner was overcome. Last year,
yeah,
tough guy. Some say at one time, the most hated guy in baseball, they said about him.
Yeah.
Hard, tough, driven, passionate.
Was a little weepy.
Weepy?
Yeah, weepy.
This is truly, you can say it now, one of the greatest teams in baseball.
To understand just how sweet this victory was, you have to turn back the clock to the 1980s.
Oh, he dropped the ball.
That's when the Yankees, long one of baseball's legendary teams, suffered a legendary fall from grace, dropping from first place to last in one disastrous decade.
Oh, he dropped it too. Holy cow, what's coming off here?
Steinbrenner, his critics say, decimated the Yankees minor league system. He bullied his players relentlessly, and he sacked his manager 16 times in 15 seasons. One of them, popular Hall of Famer Yogi Berra, was dumped just a few weeks into the 1985 season, and Steinbrenner didn't even have the courtesy to tell him to his face. All the turmoil took its toll on the Yankees' morale and performance.
Here's some booze out there.
There were those who said during the 80s that you drove this organization into the ground, that George Steinbrenner was responsible for the deterioration of a world championship.
That's true. A lot
team.
of people said that.
What do you say?
Well, I say they may be right in some ways.
So when someone looks back at that time and says George was meddling too much. Possible. He was not listening to other people. He did not have his... He didn't respect the farm system that had been built up.
Possible.
He simply didn't know as much baseball as he thought he did.
Totally accurate.
And Steinbrenner admits he didn't behave well under the circumstances.
I'm not an easy man. I've never been a good loser. You show me a good loser, I'll show you a loser. That was a very famous statement, one I carry with me all the time. I've never been a good loser, and I don't suppose I ever will be.
By 1990, it looked like things couldn't get worse for George Steinbrenner. Not only was his team last in the league, but also the boss was suspended from baseball, benched for 2 years.
Mr. Steinbrenner has agreed to resign.
Blustering bully boy owner threw in the towel.
Means that he cannot participate in managing the Yankees.
The mouth that roared was, at last, muffled.
What he had done broke not only the rules of baseball, but the rules of simple decency. He actually paid someone to investigate one of his own star players, Dave Winfield, just to see if he could ruin his reputation.
Do you feel you've embarrassed the Yankees, George? Do you feel you embarrassed the Yankees?
That never should have happened. For whatever reason, if it was my fault, fine. Okay, I accept that. If
Well, it was your fault that you gave somebody $40,000 to find some information on him.
I'm not going to argue that. Okay?
By the time the story came out in the newspapers, the fans had had it with George Steinbrenner.
They just got the news.
And when the announcement was made that the boss was banned from baseball,
Fans must have just heard about you.
there was a standing ovation in Yankee Stadium.
Everybody on their feet. They're trying to get them all out.
You knew that they had cheered in this stadium.
Yes, they did.
Cheered?
Yeah. That was embarrassing. It really hurt. Really hurt. They did. They cheered when they announced that I was suspended.
I mean, that would have crushed me.
Yeah, it was tough. I went through a real difficult time then. It was really tough. But you have to understand, you know, there's an old saying, I am wounded, but I am not slain. I shall lay me down and bleed a while. Then I will rise and fight again. It's an old and famous saying, and I've always kept that in my mind and in my heart. You got to battle back.
2 years later, Steinbrenner was back. And just to make sure no one missed the point, he posed for the cover of Sports Illustrated as Napoleon returning from Elba. When they describe you, and they've had a chance to describe you on 1,000 pages and
oh boy,
volumes of words,
Yes.
What do you think the most accurate description is of Steinbrenner?
Gee, I have to leave that to others. Humbleness, humility, and sacrifice. How does that read?
Despite the bluster, for Steinbrenner, being out of the game had been a profoundly humbling experience. But it also had given him time to reflect. And as a result, he's not quite the absolute ruler he used to be.
My dad used to tell me, don't spend a moment dwelling on a victory. Dwell on your defeats. Find out how it happened, understand where you made your mistakes, and don't repeat them. And I've always carried that with me, and it's served me pretty well.
The biggest mistake Steinbrenner hasn't repeated since he returned from exile is constantly firing his managers. 3 years ago, when he took on his current manager, Joe Torre, people thought Torre would never last.
Clueless Joe, the New York paper said. Why will they hire Joe? What's Steinbrenner thinking of? He's nuts. Joe Torre never won anywhere. He didn't win with the Mets. He didn't win with St. Louis. But I saw something in Joe Torre. He had one thing I loved, the mental toughness.
That's the one. That's the one.
Steinbrenner's highest-paid star, Bernie Williams, says Torre plays a key role for the team. In some way, he's a buffer to Steinbrenner.
Oh, yeah, big time. You know, he's definitely our mediator, you know, because it could get rough at times.
But not as rough as it used to be. Steinbrenner's legendary feuds with his players have all but ended, and lately he has made a point of making amends. Last year, he invited now-retired Dave Winfield back to the Yankee fold. This year, it was Yogi Berra's turn. Ever since he was fired as manager back in 1985, he had stayed away from Yankee Stadium. It was a bitter ending to a lifelong career with the team.
He didn't tell me I was fired. He sent somebody else to get fired, and I didn't like that.
Didn't like it?
No.
Not the way to treat a man, is it?
No, I don't think so.
And you held a grudge?
Yep, 14 years.
There might never have been a reconciliation with Yogi Berra if it weren't for Yankee icon Joe DiMaggio.
I became very close to Joe D in his final years. And more than once he mentioned to me, you've got to get him back. You've got to get him back. He should be here. He was Yankee. He from start to finish, he is Yankee.
Just 2 months before DiMaggio died, Steinbrenner finally told Yogi he was sorry.
If there was a mistake, it was my mistake, and I apologized to him.
And it was great the way he did it, you know, had a little tear.
Little tear?
Yeah.
Because he was sorry.
Yeah. He said, I did the wrong thing, I know it. I made a mistake and all that.
This spring, Steinbrenner invited Yogi back to Yankee Stadium to throw out the first pitch on opening day. It's things like this that are making people say the toughest boss in baseball has mellowed. But Don Zimmer, who has worked for Steinbrenner off and on since the early 80s, doesn't see it that way. Everybody wants to believe that George has changed. He says the one way he's changed is he has more patience. You see that?
Do you see it? I don't know George any different today than I did 6 years ago.
You haven't seen it.
I mean, you know, if he's changed, maybe it's out in the parking lot or something. I don't know. He's George, and he'll be George until the day I die, and that's about the way it is.
Steinbrenner says one thing about himself certainly hasn't changed.
He's still intense.
He's still intense, and he still is prepared to call a player a toad.
Oh, that was ill-timed. That remark was ill-timed. I have been known to do that during my span in baseball.
Actually, timing was the least of it. He flew into a rage when his high-priced pitcher Hideki Arabu failed to cover first base during spring training. It was vintage Steinbrenner, and the press loved it.
I said, he looked, I thought to myself, like a fat pussy toad. Just, I was describing what it looked like. That was an ill-timed remark, but I was really intense.
If you look for an explanation for Steinbrenner's outburst, it all goes back to one thing. He wants to win, and win at any cost. After all, it was Steinbrenner who pioneered the modern baseball business, some say damaging the game forever, where money can buy the best free agents and perhaps a World Series winning team.
He's a must guy. You have to win. You have to win. I mean, I get a kick out of it sometimes when he says, you have to win today. It's TV. Well, to me, there's no such thing as you have to win unless what are they going to do, cut your neck off or something?
This is my favorite view of the whole stadium.
For most people, baseball is about winning and losing and how you handle both. But not for Steinbrenner. He dreams of a game where losing isn't even a part of it.
Are you the guy that said to Joe Torre, is it possible to win 162 games?
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. I said, is it possible? Has any team in baseball ever gone undefeated? And he says, that's pressure. He says, that is pressure.
60 Minutes 2 will continue in a moment.
CBS Market Watch Update, sponsored by Charles Schwab.
Good evening. The government says inflation this year is running at 2.4%. Planet Hollywood is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. On Wall Street, stock prices closed higher today. And from Sweden, meet the automatic lawnmower. Price $1,500. I'm Anthony Mason, CBS News.
Hi, I have a question about buying stock. What's the difference between a market order and a limit order? Hello? Excuse me.
When you have an investment question, does your online brokerage have anybody there to answer it? We do.
Market Watch Update from CBS News.
Problem?
Doctor said my cholesterol is still too high.
What about diet and exercise?
They didn't do enough.
So?
He suggested adding Lipitor.
Lipitor, the #1 prescribed medication for lowering cholesterol. In clinical studies, Lipitor with diet was proven to lower bad cholesterol 39 to 60%, total cholesterol 29 to 45%, triglycerides 19 to 37%.
He said over 4 million people have started taking Lipitor to lower their cholesterol.
Lipitor is not for everyone, including people with liver disease or possible liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant.
There'll be blood tests to check for liver problems.
Tell your doctor about muscle pain or weakness, as these may be signs of serious side effects.
You take Lipitor once a day.
Ask your doctor or pharmacist for more information on Lipitor and call 1-888-LIPITOR.
Well? Lipitor did it. My cholesterol's way down.
Lipitor, the lower numbers you're looking for.
Staples presents the Staples Coach of the Week program. It's our salute to leaders on the field and in the classroom. And it's your chance to win $5,000 in school supplies for your school, plus a visit from your local NFL head coach. To enter, visit a Staples near you. Register at www.staples.com or send your entry to Staples Coach of the Week. Watch NFL Today Sundays on CBS for winners.
TV Guide calls David James Elliott one of television's sexiest stars.
You know, this girlish figure doesn't come without sacrifice.
Catch him in the Emmy-nominated Jag at a special time CBS Next.
The toughest decisions are the ones you have to make alone.
I wish I had a normal family.
This judge thing's pretty cool, but the best job I'm ever gonna have is being your mom.
Judging Amy, CBS Tuesday this fall.
Dave's got Laura Flynn Boyle and David Brenner tonight on CBS.
From Wish TV, your 24-hour news station, here's the latest from News 8.
Good evening, I'm Mike Ahern. A moderate earthquake north of San Francisco late today. It rocked the town of Bolinas and shook office buildings in San Francisco. No injuries or damage have been reported. In Las Vegas, a corporate jet was forced to make this emergency landing when its front landing gear failed. Amazingly, the pilot was able to bring the plane to a fiery stop. All passengers were rushed to safety. This is your 24-hour news station.
The best time to buy a new car is at the end of the model year. But where is the best place? Your nearest Nissan retailer during Nissan's Millennium Clearance Event. Get $2,000 cash back and 5.9 APR financing on 99 Nissan Altimas. Plus, during the Millennium Clearance Event, get $2,500 cash back on 99 Maximas and Pathfinders with $2,000 cash back and 5.9 APR financing on every 99 Altima. The future has never looked brighter. Nissan. Driven.
My pants used to get baked on mess, but now they sparkle.
What's my secret? Boston Market.
At Boston Market, you don't have to worry about dinner. It's done. Because for a limited time, you can get a quarter dark rotisserie chicken, 2 mouth-watering sides, cornbread, and a Coke for just $4.99. An entire meal for less than $5.
And I don't have to use a single pan, except this one. Dinner!
Boston Market. Dinner, it's done.
The Dalai Lama searches for solutions to youth violence at 11.
Last spring, as the air war raged over Kosovo, Jimmy Tingle was raging too. His subject, the stealth bomber. It might avoid a lot of radar, but not Jimmy Tingle's.
For the first couple of days, the war in Yugoslavia seemed to me like a huge television commercial for our stealth aircraft. I kept seeing these news reports saying how both the stealth bomber and the stealth fighter could carry tons of bombs and they don't show up on radar. Then one of the fighters got shot down, and I haven't seen a report since. Apparently, they don't show up on radar, but they can show up perfectly well to the naked eye. Now, I always thought that if we needed a plane that doesn't show up on radar that bad, why don't we just ask the South American drug cartels if we can borrow a couple of the planes they've been using to smuggle drugs into this country for the last 35 years? They don't show up on radar either. And it's just too bad we couldn't use the stealth bomber to airlift supplies to actually help the refugees we're trying to save. I'm sure the refugees would be much more impressed with a plane that does show up with food and medicine rather than one that does not show up on radar. And I guess the stealth technology has had a few problems in its long and expensive career. There was a rumor going around last year that the planes didn't work in the rain. I was shocked. I have a bicycle that works in the rain. Billions of dollars for planes to protect the country and they don't work in the rain? I suppose that's okay if we're fighting in the desert, but if we had to defend Seattle, it could be a problem.
I'm Bob Simon. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of 60 Minutes 2.
Set for life. That's what IBM workers thought they were till their pensions got eliminated. And they're not alone. Tomorrow, why some of America's richest companies are doing away with pensions. Plus, car insurance repair practices exposed. What you don't know about what's going into your car. On the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
One day he'll be able to say, I love you. One day he won't need to hold your hand. One day you won't be his best girl. And before you know it, you'll be off to college. I mean, look at him with that little pencil. Can't you get him a computer, a printer, something? He's such a cute kid. Thank you.
Get everything for back to school. Come into Office Depot. Low prices every day.
Dr. Scholl's next stop, San Francisco.
Let's talk about feet.
I do have corn.
I've tried Band-Aids.
They don't get rid of the corn.
This is Dr. Scholl's Cushion Gel Corn Removers.
The Cushion Gel relieves the pain.
The medicated disc removes the corn.
It just feels so much better.
Well, my work here is done.
My business runs on long hours and a leave. I can't settle for those pain relievers that quit too soon. Just 2 Aleve are strong enough to work all day. I used to need 8 Tylenol to do that. There's a tool for every job. For tough pain, it's Aleve.
It's allergy season again. So what do doctors prescribe for itchy, watery allergy eyes like yours?
Patanol.
Patanol. More than any other prescription allergy eye drop?
Patanol.
Patanol works fast.
In just minutes.
And it lasts 8 hours.
It really works.
Some people may experience headache, burning, or stinging. Take your contacts out before use.
Bye-bye, allergy eyes.
Patanol. Works in minutes. Lasts 8 hours.
Parents are accused of an unthinkable crime.
I did not kill my daughter, Your Honor.
Now the verdict is in. Based on a true story, Gone in the Night, CBS Wednesday.
How smart is Bart? He steals all the scenes from you. He's a great hand. And he earns 10 grand a day in Hollywood. Now that's smart. Plus, they're known as lovable creatures of the sea, but
I felt this jaw grab and pull me under.
there's a darker side to the dolphin.
I'm sure people will not like to hear some of this.
48 Hours Thursday.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the Internet and on our interactive partner, America Online at keyword CBS News.
This is not happening.
Well, I had a little partner trouble of my own.
Besides being a damn good attorney, I play very dirty.
Messenger this over to Alan Riley's office and tell them not to spill it. Dead dog inside.
Thank you, Lord, for these hours we are about to bill.
Family Law, CBS Monday.